What is up, everyone? Coffee Break is back with another video, and the talks are heating up. Trent Williams, and that's the obvious one. Jimmy Garoppolo always being in the news for one reason or the other, but it's so difficult to not link like Trent Williams to Jimmy. The issues are so intertwined with the 49ers right now. And, I started thinking about this. Depending on how Jimmy, if he ends up with the Niners or if he's traded, cut, whatever the case may be, if the Niners are looking heavily at drafting a top quarterback in this upcoming draft, it could determine whether or not they can sign Trent Williams. Now, when we talk about Trent Williams just as an individual, obviously top left tackle, but currently I don't think they have the capacity to acquire a big deal like that, knowing that right behind him you have Fred Warner coming into his last year of his rookie contract, and you're gonna want to extend him, right? I mean, top middle linebacker in the league, top 3, arguably top 1. So you have to really think about, this is what John Lynch is kind of hashing out in his office, with his team. You have to not only think about what can happen this year, but 2-3 years ahead. And so for that reason, the Niners are in a similar position that they were last year, where you had, obviously, they wanted to keep Armstead, but then they had to extend Buckner, and they wound up trading Buckner to everyone's surprise and signed Eric Armstead. Now, hindsight is 2020, but when you look back at that, you think, maybe they should have handled that a little bit differently. And I think John Lynch, if you kind of held him to the fire and asked him about that, he may have done things differently last year. But this year, you kind of learn from your mistakes, you learn what you've done, and now you're seeing it again, right? You have Trent Williams, who's a free agent. You want to keep, obviously, a position in need. And then you have Fred Warner creeping up. His contract is due. You don't want to be, that team that allows good players to hit the market. Obviously, they didn't with, Jimmy being the first one that they did it to, but he wasn't a drafted player. Kittle was kind of the first one where he was kind of drafted by them. They ended up giving him that big money, and deservingly so. But this is kind of what you expect when you draft well. You keep, the good players, and if there's a high need, or if there's not really a need at a position and the contract's up, maybe you trade for the player, which is why, I think, looking back at it, they should have kept Buckner. And they should have just let, Eric Armstead just walk. And I know they got a good deal from Buckner. They were able to get that top pick, which turned into Kinlaw. But, that value went down a little bit when you let go of Buckner and got, a guy who was still raw, who's still developing in Kinlaw. So you have that. But this year, obviously, if we're just looking at it from Trent Williams' perspective, and I know there's cap issues and whatnot, but if you're telling me, okay, you get to sign Trent Williams, but then this now leaves no money for Fred Warner, and he will be a free agent coming into next year. Niners can't do anything about that. I would say, okay, we have a young linebacker. I don't even know how old he is. He's probably like 24, 25 right now. Probably even younger than that, looking at it. But Fred Warner, still a young guy, right? Trent Williams, amazing tackle, but he's 30, about to be 33. Would you risk that move? I wouldn't. I mean, I honestly think you have to almost sign Fred Warner first, extend him first, and then if you have room to sign, all these other guys, like we talked about this in the previous video, Juszczyk, K'Waun Williams will be a little bit difficult. He'll ask for a lot of money, but Verrett, we get him for a cheap deal. Guys like that obviously you need a left tackle. You'll probably end up drafting one, because I don't think there's one in the roster outside of Trent Williams. Like, the offensive line in general just needs work, and I think they'll have to sign, some guys in free agency. They'll have to draft guys, but it gets to a point where the offensive line would be the main focus in the draft, no doubt. But just from that standpoint, where the Niners are in a similar position that they were last year, I hope they learned from their mistakes. They're able to just make a much clearer decision on this. Like, to me, it's more obvious when you look at it from that standpoint. Now, of course, if I want to play devil's advocate and put in the quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, in the mix, because he is taking a huge cap hit if they end up keeping him in the roster. But if they end up cutting him before that, I think June 1st deadline, they're able to just take a $2 million cap hit, and then you're left with, now you're left with $20 million in the cap, which that's plenty of money to sign a left tackle in Trent Williams. And so that's why I said, Jimmy Garoppolo is a key piece. But if the Niners, who have been in talks of moving on from Jimmy, they haven't said it directly, but all the actions they've done point in the direction of, I want to move on, or I want to see if there's someone better. Either they tested the market with Stafford. They've tested the market in the past, even last year with Tom Brady. This year they're a little bit more aggressive. Like, I've been thinking they're gonna want to land a top quarterback. Either they try to move up in the draft, or they stay put and try to get someone in the second round, things like that. But depending on how those chips fall, will be a critical move in terms of salary cap, and it'll change kind of just the mindset of the offseason. You'll have way more money to deal with. So like I said, a lot of these players are intertwined with each other just because of the salary cap reasons. And yeah, I mean, going into this year, the Niners in general are just going to look completely different. I expect the defense to look completely different. It will be, right, just based on players alone. But also just the team in general, with so many moving pieces, I honestly don't know what to expect. I don't know what type of team we're going to be throwing out there. We'll have to wait until the draft and free agency has gone by to kind of evaluate what we have, and then move on into training camp. But the unknown is kind of worrisome for me, just a little bit. Not knowing who your left tackle is going to be, not knowing, who your corners are going to be. That's important. Overall, that is extremely important. And if you don't know what those cornerstone positions, who you will land, I mean, it's got to have you worried. But let me hear from you guys. What do you think if you had to choose between Trent Williams and Fred Warner? Who's taking the walk? I have a feeling the majority would say Fred Warner, but I could be wrong. Go ahead and drop your comments below. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you all for watching my video. And as always, we'll see you on the next one, guys. Peace.